The modernity of yesterday is the tradition of today, and the modernity of today will be the tradition of tomorrow. So that's how tradition and culture take root in our lives. The culture and tradition is the product of social environment that includes a shared sense of values, norms, customs, etiquettes, meanings, rules, words, and all put together. Even the simplest or the smallest tradition that takes endless amount of time to be part of our life. And in the military, the importance of culture and tradition is even much greater. It provides a sense of continuity between the generations, uphold image and instill spirit, and thereby helps in creating a strong professional and personal bond. This may appear strange and idiosyncratic to you, but they carry a very genuine appeal to the members of the armed forces. They are mostly taken from the British as the ancestors who led us in the formative years. They were trained and groomed along the British line of training. It was but natural for them to have imbibed those traditions and consequently pass those down to the later generations. These are mostly based on regimental life and officers' mass centering. Although our armed forces, they have many common traditions, but they also have their own distinctive traditions. As we delve into this subject, you will be coming to know those. This is General Sarwar, and you are watching Sarwar's Chronicle. Back in 1987, when I joined 44 East Bengal Regiment in Ghatal Cantonment, it was a barren land with scattered buildings situated between the hillocks, serenity engulfed all over, and even a pack of jackals would not hesitate to attack a pedestrian in dull hour. Now, Ghatal Cantonment has turned out to be a very organized cantonment, which once started with an under-strength brigade, now comprising a full-fledged division with other static installations. After joining in the unit, my joy of wearing uniform was finally fulfilled. Uniform is a sacred article for any military personnel. Why? Because it soaks nothing less than the sweat and blood of a soldier. The uniform that we use today has come of age and has gone through a lengthy evolutionary process. When the British Indian Army, they were first organized in this region, they used to use red uniform, considering this would make it easier for them to distinguish between the friends and foes, but realizing little that they could still be hunted by the bees and bulls. However, after the 1857 rebellion, the British, they changed from red to khaki uniform, which suited well with the dusty Indian terrain. But after the Second World War, the Pakistan Army, they retained the khaki, and Indian Armed Forces, they adopted the olive green color. But after 1971, we continued to use khaki, and certainly with other combats of different shades. But currently, Bangladesh Army uses working dress comprising khaki and olive combination. And on the other hand, the Air Force and Navy, they have their deep blue and light blue combination and white respectively to retain their service entity in dress. These days, some other forces do also use combat uniform, including private security agencies, and this has made things so much difficult that sometimes it is even difficult to distinguish which is army and which is not. This is something that has dampened the pride of using combat. Traditionally, the soldiers, they used to wear the rank on the sleeves, as most of them used manual task, and but these days we see them using it on their shoulder, which is a significant change from the past that we notice these days. And the officers, they continue to wear the rank on the shoulder, as they bear responsibility of their position. But is the British and US Army, when they go to the battlefield in battle dress, they prefer to wear their rank on the chest so that they're not being singled out being an officer. So first thing first, right after arriving in the unit, I was immediately put into the regimentation program, which is basically living a soldier's life being in the barrack. The soldiers usually in the unit, they undertake PT, drill, firing, exercise and other fatigues, and I had done all of those. Regimentation gives an opportunity to understand the life of the soldiers, or a first-hand knowledge about the soldiers. And it also exposes the officers to other military nuances like military rules, regulations, customs, etiquettes, traditions, and so on. If you get an opportunity to witness a parade participated by smartly turned out contingents in tune with chol, 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 this will literally raise your goosebumps. Military forces, they have many such heartwarming traditions.
Chol, 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 chol. উঠ গগনে বাজে বাদল নিম্নে উতালা ধরণী তল তরুণ প্রাতের তরুণ দল চল রে চল রে চল 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 চল.
It's learned that the umpires developed this marching just to mobilize troops from one point to the other so that they can be taken without being mixed up, and now being used as a tool to teach military discipline. Of the other traditions, reveille and retreat are very common. Reveille is sounding an energetic bugle in the morning to wake up the sleeping soldiers and to let everyone know about the start of the day, while the retreat or the last post is again a bugle sound that signifies the end of the day's activities. So when these bugles are blown, the soldiers in uniform, they stand still and salute, and others in ceviches or in civil dress, they stand still facing the flag out of respect. The soldiers may die in the name of their unit, and it enhances the spirit deco of the unit. That's why military is a way of life, not a job, and that makes it fundamentally different from any other profession. Besides the numerical identity of the unit, every unit has a nickname, which is usually based on its achievement, any particular event, time. For any unit, quarter guard is a very sacred place, and it houses all the keys, armaments, ammunitions, and it is also manned 24/7 by armed guard. Any soldiers doing duty in the quarter guard takes a lot of pride for himself. Even the best guard of the day is picked up as the commanding officer's orderly, and why not? He is just one out of 500 soldiers available in the unit. So you can understand the importance of quarter guard. So after completion of my regimentation, my commanding officer, he interviewed me and gave me some very valuable suggestions like besides the honesty, integrity and discipline, the respect for the seniors, service before self, go into the details, try to give solution without giving problem, reconnaissance, time is never wasted, then don't visit police stations, don't indulge into politics, then live with a privilege not right. So these are some of the things that really guided us in the formative years of our career. So in those days, we used to have 40 to 45% shortage in the officers' cadre, and therefore we had to be multitaskers. Not like becoming jack of all trade and master of none. In fact, whenever we indulge into a serious task, we really derive the best out of it. There are a couple of units in Ghatal cantonment then, of which 4 East Bengal was one of them. So I had a course mates serving there in 4 East Bengal regiment, and I used to be so jealous of him for wearing red piping stitch to his collar of his uniform, which they were adorned for participating in the Liberation War. This is nothing, just ornamental, yet so special. Why? Because it carried the legacy of 1971 war, and it was a pride for all the members of the unit. Luckily, later in my career, I had the opportunity to command this unit, which was once commanded by Major Khalid Musharraf, one of the valiant freedom fighters and our sector commanders of 1971 war. Fire!
We are fighting a war of attrition, in that we kill in self-defense, as long as they are going to come and fight with us.
For being raised later in the serial, out of the infantry battalions, those were raised after 1947, it is called as such, the baby tigers. Likewise, the 1st East Bengal Regiment, since it was raised before all others, is known as senior tigers. In those days, officers' life centered around officers' mess, and the officers' mess that we have around different cantonments, they carry many colonial features in the form of their layout, then bar room, interior, dining facilities, table manners, uniform mess sweaters, bugles, then also drinking a toast in honor of the chairman during the dinner nights. These are some but few. These traditions carry a huge sense of honor and dignity and a touch of class in the officer's life. One may be very critical about this being colonial, but if this can evoke a sense of pride, why not? Mass and regimental life creates a huge bond among the officers in the unit, in the army, and when it comes to Navy, the similar kind of affinity persists among the officers serving in the same ship. So it is in case of the Air Force officers when they serve in the same squadron or in the same base. Unit officer is such a unique bond that it surpasses any other relation. My first adjutant is still my mentor. Be it worse or good, I would always love to consult him and look up to him, still at this age. We never even cared who is from where. We paddled bicycle together, went to the office together, did the hardship, we ate together, fought, witnessed movies, went to the theater, and did almost everything together. In that milieu, the junior officers, they used to be highly privileged, particularly when it came to eating and treating, because it was the prerogative of the senior officers to feed the juniors. And in doing so, the seniors, they never cared about going OD, overdraft. Overdraft is drawing money from your current account when you have less balance than you were drawing. And in those days, subalterns used to get not more than 2,000 to 3,000 taka per month. Still, life was so good. So let me cite an interesting anecdote here. I had a unit officer who had a love affair with a very beautiful girl. One day he received a call from his fiancée and stating if he doesn't marry her, she would be lost for once. It was like a redolent of romantic Bollywood movie. Like any movie narrative, the officer made no excuse. He went for a French lab and married the girl without realizing that he has not yet attained the marriageable age. Oh, French lab. This is supposedly came from the practice of French people because they would, as a matter of practice, leave the party without saying goodbye to the host. Likewise, the junior officers, when they availed leave without informing the office, that's also known as French leave. However, as luck would have, the officer was punished for breaching the military rule. But the most interesting part is when his wife was given a reception in the cantonment prior to joining the military fraternity, the senior-most officer saluted her. It's the tradition in the army that the junior-most officer's wife would be also saluted or respected by the senior officers. That's how the ladies are respected so reverently in the military circle. So many of these traditions between and among the officers is fading away because of the tremendous pressure of net-centric, self-centric, materialistic life offered by 21st century. Unit was like a melting pot where the caste, creed, religion, region, rich, poor, mediocre notion and everything fusioned together to give a very distinct identity to the officers' class. Even today, the military culture is proving to be the most powerful unifying culture. You'll be surprised to see that an Indian Corps commander is offering prayer in a mosque in Srinagar, where minorities are very frequently discriminated. If you have noticed, the Corps commander is wearing red georgette on his shoulder. The officers of the rank of colonel to general, with little bit of variation, they also wear red tabs in our armed forces. This is basically a piece of armor used in 14th century armor suit to protect the throat. By the beginning of the 18th century, the piece that remained had no practical value. Rather, it only added as an ornamental addition to the officer's uniform. Besides red tabs, the flying of flags and stars in the car or vehicle is also practiced in the old Commonwealth countries. Only commanders and few staff officers were entitled to use flag cars, but these days we see a huge proliferation of flag cars both within the armed forces and outside. This really put the service officers in great disadvantage, particularly when they join any military functions. I was lucky to have experienced naval life in ship, although for a brief period. The best part I recall was the food they offered had been wonderful. For living in the ship or for any other reasons, they have taken their culinary expertise to a height which is really appreciated. Apart from their food delicacy, I also witnessed some of their very spectacular naval traditions. The naval ships, when they go out and enter the harbor or port, all of them come out of their fold. They line up along the deck and salute with a mild blowing of whistle, and that looks so spectacular. But it also has some historical anecdotes. This tradition has started after the organization of Royal Navy, particularly when the captains were required to master all their crews in the deck to prove how many sailors he has masters, for which he would be paid subsequently. So it's done to show respect and also to take pride in one's ship. And in later years, it became customary while entering the foreign course that all the sailors, they would come out and line up on the deck to reassure that there is nobody behind the gun and nothing untoward would be taking place. I'm sure while doing this tradition, you have noticed the sailors, they salute putting their palm downwards, and it also has a reason. Particularly the deck sailors or the personals in the ship, they often work, and while working the palms get dirty or greased, and it is considered improper to salute with a dirty palm. So ever since then they salute pointing their palm downwards. But this is a very different one than the Air Force and Bangladesh Army that they practice. They salute with an open palm. signaling that they're not carrying any weapon and they can be trusted. So this is a little different from the naval saluting. So much so about the naval tradition, and I'm sure any Air Force tradition will relate to the aircraft or flying. If any tradition is able to forge trust and respect between the people, that is wonderful, and that can make life so much better. In Air Force, it takes place between the aviator and the maintainer, particularly during the takeoff and landing. Yes, I'm talking about the aviation salute signal. This tradition is originated during the invention of first flight by the Wright brothers more than 100 years before. So during the takeoff of the very first flight by the Wright brothers, it was thought over that who would fly first and who would be supporting from the ground roll. And after a coin toss, it was decided that Orville Wright pilot the first aircraft or the first flight, and Wilbur Wright will provide necessary support from the ground. Since then, the salute exchange tradition is introduced and is still continuing. I'm sure we all have witnessed the spectacular fly past by the Bangladesh Air Force during various National Day parade, and this is one of their most celebrated tradition. It really shows the power, profession, pride of Bangladesh Air Force. Would you believe that this tradition is more than 100 years old? It's when the first combat aircraft flew over the battlefield following a mission. The own forces deployed on the ground used to be tasked to count the number of aircrafts to be sure their missions were successful or some other aviators got lost. Gone are those days. Today's Air Force, they use the most sophisticated fighter jets, and therefore they don't have to rely on the primitive system of confirming the number of aircrafts succeeded or lost or whatever, but the tradition is still maintained to demonstrate the legacy. Another spectacular tradition is the water salute, which is adopted while a newly inducted aircraft is inducted into the service or a senior pilot retiring. Usually, it takes place right after the landing of the aircraft, when two trucks from either side they come and spray the water arcs, and the aircraft pass below the water arcs like a bridal party. This tradition started since the Delta Airlines started honoring the retiring captain during their last flight or last sortie. Although we live in a global village, but I firmly believe the military culture and tradition will continue to beckon pride, esprit de corps, professionalism, linking the past, present and future, and which is so much important for the growth of the armed forces to deliver what the nation wants out of them in the time of crisis. With this, I have come to the end of the talk. I hope you liked it. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.